You're welcome along. Wednesday Night Rugby coming at you. In studio this evening was the GOAT. It was good to have him in. He watched a lot of rugby over Christmas because he wasn't feeling very well. The full conversation waiting for you on podcast, very much free. All you have to do is just download the podcast. But Monday and Wednesday Night Rugby, we very much are steering you in that direction. Just to give you a taster of what Mr. Andy Dunne was talking about, the news came through today that Ben Healy is joining Edinburgh at the end of this season. So obviously Andy keeps a close eye on all the Irish number 10s. So here's a taster of what was a 40-minute odd chat with Andy Dunne. We'll start with the Ben Healy news today. This has been mooted for some time. Ben Healy, whose presence against Ulster added a lot, and Graham Rowntree was talking about that as well. Post-match, after he came on and Crowley moved to 12 and he scored the winning try in 80 minutes, Rowntree afterwards was singing Ben Healy's praises. Ben has composure. He reeks of composure. He's been cracking for us. He's come on at a key time, as did Conor Murray. He's settled things down. However, the news has come through that he will join Edinburgh at the end of the season. Munster say they offered a new contract. By their own words, made every effort to retain his services. Graham Rowntree said it's tough to take, it's out of our hands. Ben Healy said, I believe a move to a club such as Edinburgh gives me the best opportunity to fulfil my professional goals. He is Scottish qualified by dint of his maternal grandparents, and unlike John Cooney, there will be no waiting period. So once he is picked, he can play. Now, I would presume he won't be picked for the Six Nations, given he'll still be at Munster, but maybe stranger things have happened. They might make an exception. Regardless, Ben Healy gone. He obviously saw Joey Carberry's return from injury and relatively consistent form, and maybe crucially the emergence of Jack Crowley, and that Scottish carrot looked all the more appealing.
Yeah, and I think while it's tough for Rowntree and any coach who coaches a young fella who's got brilliant professionalism, and who's got a capacity to do what he does well. He does his strong parts of his game exceptionally well. Coaches do really enjoy working with players like that, so I can understand for Rowntree why it hurts, and he also gives additional strength and depth. But I think that's where it becomes tricky for the likes of Healy, that he probably knows he's respected as a good squad member by the likes of Rowntree. He knows he's very professional and capable, but he clearly knows he is third choice, and he said he has his own professional goals. And I would imagine there, if he's an opportunity to play international rugby, he's going to get a better chance in Scotland than he is in Ireland. So I think it's a good call for him. I think wish him the best and hope in a year or two he doesn't knock over 7 penalties against us in Murrayfield and we lose the Six Nations game, because I could see it happening, But he's a complete and utter opposite of the likes of Finn Russell. If he does break into a Scottish national setup, which I presume is his goal, I don't think he grew up dreaming of playing for Edinburgh, put it that way. So and
I don't even think Scotland, realistically, I can't speak for him, I don't know what his dreams were, but he played at Irish underage level, won a Grand Slam, and presumably this is a choice of pragmatism.
Yes, and McGinty probably didn't grow up thinking he was going to go and play for the US, and Ian McKinley didn't think he was going to grow up and play for Italy. But when you get to a point where you're of very good quality, but you know the writing's on the wall and you're established in your position and you're not getting a look in, I can really see their point of view, and I think it's to be applauded.
And is he definitely behind Crowley?
Yes, I would say in terms of the Irish management viewpoint. If you're asking me just objectively what you look at, is he behind Crowley? It's hard to say, because what I've seen from Crowley, probably the most impressive single piece of skill I've ever seen from Crowley was 2 or 3 years ago in a 20s game where he ran an incredible individual try from his own 22, and that he hasn't done that in the professional era yet. So you're working a lot off potential with Crowley. I think
that's why I have wondered if Healy might have been advised. I know he's 23. Well, let's just stay here and fight your corner a while and see what happens.
Yeah, you could, but I suppose if Crowley has come in, has started the game against Australia almost by accident,
Yeah.
you know, as we know, but then simultaneously held his own very, very capably in that game, and he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything that stood out, which is actually a good thing, because he didn't make any glaring mistakes that stood out in a game thrown in the deep end at an international against a reasonably good quality Aussie side. I think he's, unfortunately for Healy, he's just been leapfrogged, and I would say that isn't going to change. So
Okay.
and I don't think it's just entirely objective, like looking at Crowley and looking at Healy and saying, look, you know, based on what Healy's done, does he deserve to be leapfrogged like that? Probably not, but that's the way it rolls.
Because he's 90% off the kicking tee, which is exceptional. And he has kicked winning points at the death for Munster on several occasions. So he has a certain temperament. I've seen his defence questioned, but I presume that's something that can be improved. General play, how good is Healy?
General play, I would say he's just a moderately talented. I don't think he's ever going to shake up a game with his influence in attack, and that's his influence as a distributor or his influence as an individual threat. It's not there in his game. Now, if you look at the try, you have to look at it in context and say he was a yard out, and there were two particularly weak tackles. So, you know, looking at it in context, his overall attacking game, I'm sure what he can do is he can come in and operate a system that a management team want him to operate, and he can do it very well. But I think the highest level, you need people who can choose to go off the system and make that successful too. You'll never hear a coach criticise someone who went off piste and it worked, you know. I don't know if he's got that in the repertoire either. I certainly haven't seen evidence of that. But that's not to detract from the strengths. You know, if, you know, 90% kicking success rate, excellent from out of hand kicking. Defensively, we could all out halves. The vast majority of us brethren would have a question mark at that at some stage in their career. And look at Sexton, missed the absolute sitter of a tackle against Henshaw. Henshaw kind of waltzed around him and no one said a word. If that was someone else, there'd be question marks. But obviously, we know Sexton doesn't shirk it. It was just a missed tackle. But I wouldn't worry about his defensive side. I think that would. He seems to have the application and the attitude to change that very quickly. Okay.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch his career and see how he goes. And like you said, I think everybody wishes a young guy well, trying to make the most of his career at the age of 23.
Yeah.
Is he good enough, do you suspect, to be starter for Scotland medium term?
How old is Finn Russell?
At 30.
I'd say you get a couple more years out of Finn Russell, but yeah, I mean, at 23, it's a smart choice.
Yeah, it is.
Finn Russell was 26, different, okay, but at 31, and Finn Russell being as mercurial as he is.
Yeah, you're not seeing anything in the backups to Russell to suggest
not particularly Hastings. No, I think he's very. I think it's all told a smart strategic move if your goal is to play international rugby.
That was just a taster of Andy Dunne. That was the start of our chat. The full chat, 40 minutes long, and it's waiting for you on podcast. So just search OTB Rugby wherever you get your podcasts, and it's there and free and waiting for you. And we'll talk to you on Monday Night Rugby.